Okay, podcast community, welcome back. My name is Cam King. This is Three Questions Podcast, episode number 68. And this is going to be a good one. I just had some of these questions submitted from a friend. And the three questions for today are: what is the number one thing on my bucket list? How to create a bucket list? And how often should you do something in your bucket list? So, really cool questions. And coming from myself, who's now in my 30s, I feel like I prioritize a lot of stuff early on in my life. So, I have some good suggestions for this. And if you are just listening to Three Questions Podcast, this is primarily a podcast I started from my consulting company where I work with entrepreneurs or guys sort of on personal and professional development. So, talking about things like masculinity, building a business, finances. My expertise comes from marketing and advertising, primarily in sales and new business. But as I've gotten older, I've focused more on holistic health, and I've developed a lot of systems that I teach to clients and entrepreneurs and guys that are going through a transitory period in their lives, breakups, job losses, you name it. And a lot of them are doing really well in business and they want to get 1% better, or they want to improve in a certain area, or they're looking for a coach or a mentor. And even though, oh, wow, of course, there's motorcycles just zipping past my house right now. But as I continue to work on these systems and these tools and these tips and these tricks and these tactics, I often encourage my clients to get away and to develop new ideas because creative is as creative does after all. And I think this episode plays perfectly into what we're getting at. But three questions, 5 minutes each. These episodes are primarily about 15 to 20 minutes a piece. And hopefully you can get some cool takeaways or some insight or some inspiration to go and live a better life. That's what I love about podcasts. Oftentimes I don't have enough 45 minutes or 2 hours or 3 hours to listen to a podcast from someone that I really like. I like hard hitting information that I can take away and use to better my life. So without further ado, I'm going to get into question number one here. And let's see. Question number one. What is the number one thing on my bucket list? And I'll tell you, I don't even have this written down. I have not written a bucket list in a long time because I have always prioritized the things that I really want to do. And I've followed my intuition and my spirit, and it's led me to living in Europe, to living in all four corners of the country now, to skydiving all over the world, to working in a 1% military community. And I'm really, really excited about the things that I've done and the people that I've met along the way because they're the ones that keep inspiring me to do stuff. But if I sit down and I meditate and I really think about the number one thing on my bucket list, it would be to take my dog, Sadie, my 8-year-old German Shepherd, and drive all throughout Italy, north to south, east to west, go see Rome, sit in a piazza, just me and her, and feed her salami and meat and steaks, and just walk her in some of the most beautiful places on the earth. Go swim in the Mediterranean with her, take her on a boat, take her on a hike. She's getting a little older now, but I would love, love, love to just put her in a car seat, window down, and just drive a manual small Fiat all around Italy and take her to Tuscany and drink wine and watch sunsets. And most people would probably say they want to take their spouse and do that. But I think for me, the number one thing in the world would be to take her on a trip and just show her northern Italy, southern Italy, and just give her one of the most experiences I think I both of us could have. I really love that dog. That dog's been everywhere with me. I take her on planes, trains, automobiles, and I've never taken a job that I haven't been able to bring her to the office until now, really. But that's the number one thing on my bucket list, and that's something I need to do in the next couple of years. So I need to find some time and book 2 weeks to just go and do that. If I could do it for longer, I would do it for longer. I think I would take a whole month and go and do something like that. I don't know how, but where there's a will, there's a way. I think that would genuinely fill my spirit, and a big part of my life's purpose. And shit, it's making me choke up just thinking about it. I would just love to do that, right? No phone, maybe take a bunch of disposable cameras and just go find our way, maybe a compass, maybe a map, and just go where the wind takes us and meet the people along the way that we're supposed to meet. I think that would be yeah, that would be really incredible. So I don't need to belabor that one to the horse or to death too much, but that would be the number one thing on my bucket list for sure. And when I read that question, that was immediately the thing that came up. And I've talked about that for a few years. and I have not made any progress to it. So perhaps this is my sign. So I'll end it there for that question, right? But I think everyone should put some time and purpose into thinking about what it is that they would like to add to their bucket list, which brings me to question number two, how to create a bucket list. And I read a blog a long time ago about why you need to create a bucket list. Obviously, there can be any reasons. We could die at any point. But today, I read a quote by Marcus Aurelius, and I am going to butcher it. But the quote basically said, imagine your life ended today. Now, think about the rest of your life and live that half of your life like you actually want to. And I'll have to find the actual quote, but it was a quote from Daily Stoic or something on Instagram. And I saved it, but obviously I forgot it. But I thought that was extremely powerful, right? Imagine that my life ended today, right? Reflect back on that life. Hey, that was pretty good. I did some wild stuff, met a lot of people. That's that's a good thing. But if I looked at my life and the next 4 decades of it, how would I choose to live that life? And it would probably look pretty unapologetic. It would be all the things that I want to do, and it would be me doing the things that I feel like can have the biggest impact on people in a positive manner, right? Pretty cut and dry. I want to have a big impact on people. Not that I want to be Instagram famous or YouTube famous or whatever kind of bullshit, but I want to create something or leave a legacy behind that leaves the world a better place that helps people. I do that. I know that. And along the way, I know there are things like me wanting to write a New York Times bestseller. I want to become a university professor, and I want to take the lessons of those people that came before us in history, right? You think about people like Alan Watts or Nikola Tesla or all of these fantastic authors or theologians who just put in so much time and effort into trying to construct a better world, right? Identifying systems and trying to say, hey, this is what's going on here. This is why this is. Because if we can take everything that's already occurred from history and build on top of it, we can make the world a better place. And yes, the world is a very, very obtrusive place these days, a very dangerous place, but it shouldn't stop you from going out and living your life and creating a bucket list. And so I think part of a bucket list is not the things that you want to do before you die, but if you really think about it, right, we could go at any second. So what are the things along the way in this life that you really want to do? What do those things look like? Me writing a New York Times bestseller isn't really something on my bucket list. Most people have things like skydiving or ziplining or going to Papua New Guinea, right? But think about the things that are not just experiences for yourself. Think about the things that are experiences that are going to brighten and empower and bring heat and light to the world. What are the inventions that you can make? What is the stuff that you can sort of leave behind that will impact others for a much longer time period than you just having a certain experience at a certain time somewhere on the planet? To me, a bucket list is more about leaving a legacy than it is, you know, having a threesome or, sleeping with a prostitute in Amsterdam. I know some guys that have that kind of stuff on their bucket list, and I'm like, bro, why? Like, why? That's useless. Okay. That's just this sort of mental masturbation I don't really play along with. So to me, a bucket list is about leaving more of a legacy behind. It's a legacy of creation. And I think if you think about a bucket list that way, it becomes much easier to ideate that you want to do, right? Maybe you want to become a photographer and film the world's most beautiful places. Maybe you want to go to Iceland, but like, what is something that you can do there? How can you leave that place behind? How can you empower a memory to happen longer than the time that you're there, just the duration of it? So how to create a bucket list? I want you to think about it this way. If you have the next 20 or 30 years, think about it this way, right? Think about if you were to create a bucket list of, say, 100, 200, maybe even 300 different things. Even if you did one thing a month, how long would that really take you? 240 months is actually 20 years, which is a scary thought. So you add another 60 onto that, damn, that's 25 years right there. So if you identify 300 things that you want to do in your life, you come up with 300 things on your bucket list, which actually brings me to question number three. So this is a hybrid 2 and 3. But even if you come up with a list of 300 things that you want to do, everything from skydiving to having a threesome to going on to the Eiffel Tower to, seeing the Kremlin in person. If you have all of those things, you develop a list of 300 things, you would have to do one thing a month for the next 25 years. And that's pretty crazy. Who can afford that? Who has that much time? Nobody, because if you're doing one thing a month for the next 30 years, that's essentially more than half of your working career. Most people work for like 40 years. So you would essentially have to start doing this by the time that you're 30 and literally commit to it, right? Maybe you don't have 300 things. Maybe you have 100 things. Maybe you have 50 things. Maybe you have 200 things. Either way, figure out the number that most resonates with you and start doing these things, right? Question number three really is, how often should you do something on your bucket list? And I'm going to say every 1 to 3 months. Every 1 to 3 months, you should be knocking something off your bucket list. And if you haven't identified what those 3 or 4 things are in 2024, I highly encourage you to get off this podcast right now and be like, shit, I don't even have a bucket list. I'm going to write down 100 things, and you should review that every fucking week. You should add to it or remove it or adapt it or have 100 different pages in a notebook that has each one of those things and talk about some of the details of that experience that you want to have. And I guarantee the more specific that you're going to get with this, the better off you're going to be. The more likely you are to have that thing actually happen to make it come to realization. Hey, every 1 to 3 months, I'm going to do one thing on my bucket list. I'm going to flip to an open page and I'm going to execute that very thing. Damn, that's pretty powerful. Now, every single micro action and macro action, that you're taking is going to bring you closer to that reality. And when you're able to do that, damn, your life is going to look pretty damn good. If you tell someone, hey, this year I'm going to New Zealand, right? Then in 6 months, I'm going to go to South Africa and I'm going to go cage diving with the great white sharks. And then I'm going to go to Tanzania and climb this mountain. And then I'm going to go to Cyprus and learn how to windsurf in Cyprus. When you can actually really think about these things and schedule them out, it's going to make not going out on the weekend and not getting a bar tab and not spending $150 or $200 on bullshit drinks and food. It's going to make that more worth it because you know you're planning and saving for something that truly aligns with your soul, spirit, and your purpose. And whether or not you think this is bullshit or I'm just making this up off the cuff, I think your job as a person is not to just have these limited experiences of working and paying bills and having kids and dying. I think it is your soul's purpose and your job as a human being to go and collect the different shards of your life that are scattered when you incarnate onto this plane, right? I'm not high. I'm just factually speaking from a book that I'm listening to, but I truly think that it's your job's purpose to have a number of different experiences on this earth so that you can collect different pieces of yourself before you exit. And I think if you find that to be incomplete or you're not able to do it, I think at some point you come back somehow to sort of finish the journey. And along the way, yes, there's betrayals and there's all these hard things that we go through, but I constantly remind myself that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And what that means to me is that if I'm not following the things that make my soul flutter, if I'm not following that feeling where I get the chills down my spine, if I'm not following the feeling where I just like even right now I'm getting the goosebumps because I'm talking about it and I feel very aligned. And whenever I get this feeling, I know I'm going in the right direction. I know I'm saying the right thing. I know I'm doing the right thing. And when I travel and when I go and I imagine myself living in Italy when I'm a kid or when I'm a teenager, and then I go and I make it happen a couple years after college, it's like, hey, I know I'm chasing something. I know that I'm fulfilling some part of my journey because that to me was an incredible time in my life. And when I get these inspirations to go and do different things, it's like I know that at some point I'm going to have these experiences and I look forward to that because that's going to allow me to help other people. Right. So this whole process is just really about transforming in our lives. And I think part of a bucket list is really just a formula or an excuse or a reason or an aspiration for you to really evolve as a human being. So I think you should create it. I think you should travel every 1 to 3 months if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, you need to work on how you can. Stop going to the bar, limit your things, get focused, and make this shit happen. Okay. That's all I have for you guys here on episode 68. I hope that was a good one for you. Hope it made sense. I've had a couple long weeks and I haven't been super consistent with posting these. So that's on me. And I will get better. If you want to submit questions to Three Questions Podcast, submit them via DM if you're listening to this on YouTube or if you're listening to this clip anywhere else. And threequestionspodcast@gmail.com is how you can reach me. And obviously my site, if you want one-on-one sessions, business and otherwise, you can reach me at ckcollective.co or info@ckcollective.co. My name's Cam King, and this has been episode 68 of Three Questions Podcast. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.